I was looking away and completely missed the countdown. I think we're live now.
Yeah, I was just staring.
Well, hi everybody.
Hey,
Oh,
probably should talk about this while we're live. But
hmm
I was thinking maybe we just do like a slow lead in, like a longer countdown.
ah.
And then instead of like coming on for a bit and then we're like, hey, but not.
I think we do have a version of the intro with like a 2 minute timer or something like that. So
Oh, yeah, it's not hard to. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I
uh,
think I did that. We saved it
yeah,
on.
yeah, you already made one. So
Good.
thank you, past Matt.
Yeah, helping out future us.
hmm Thank you for your service.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
I'm drinking that Imperial Amber tonight.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is it right here. This is I already threw the bottle away. The bottle's
Yeah.
unimpressive, um, but it's really good.
Mm.
The Great
Nice.
Lakes 35th anniversary Imperial Amber.
Ah. Ooh. I need to
Yeah,
check that out.
it's $18 for four,
Mm.
but
Mm.
um, it's the best Imperial Amber I've ever had, and I think I've only ever had one other one, so it was not Bourbon Barrel.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, before I get to my beer, I'm trying out a new thing tonight on the stream, like letting everyone see my microphone because I realized we could see Matt's microphone before. Like, what's Tommy doing without a microphone? That unprofessional scrub. It's like, no, it was here. It was just like very well hidden.
And
So,
yours is more professional than mine.
well, maybe it's one I actually inherited it from my grandfather. It's an ADK. I've never even heard of the brand before.
Oh,
I'm sure all these other people are probably saying, Tommy, weren't you like a professional AV person? And that's like what you did for college? And like, yes, but I
there's
also
some.
never made enough money in that line of work to actually afford what
Yeah,
I know to be really nice microphones. So,
and there's so many different brands, and like some are
hmm
like there's a lot of okay ones. Is that right? But
hmm
then like
yeah,
a
no, like
fewer awesome ones.
yeah. Now, one brand I really like that's like really good for how cheap it is Rhodes. Those are really nice. But and of
Yeah,
course, like Neumann's are like those are like thousands each. But
is that Rhodes that has that like theta or the phi symbol in the name?
yeah, for the O,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
those are
like
good.
their logo.
Yeah, but something I can afford because for $18 I could get 12 of them.
Ooh,
The From the Mad Tree variety pack. This is their tropical psychopathy, however that's pronounced. But
that's
they
a good
emphasize
one.
the hop
Hmm.
in psychopathy because IPA and puns and good times. So also sporting. I just came from my daughter's lacrosse game, so sporting when their team made these shirts. Everyone watches women's sports and watch women's sport. So yeah.
Did you? Uh, all right, I didn't watch it, but I feel like I should have hearing about how well they played the women's NCAA tournament.
I did not.
I
Yeah.
heard it was just disgustingly good.
Yeah, apparently it was had like some of the highest viewership ever.
Yeah, more viewers than the men's tournament.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yep.
so congrats, ladies.
And
So,
guess what? They're gonna guess what the best player in the tournament. I forget her name. I'd
yeah, I
recognize her
know who you're
face.
talking about from Iowa.
Yeah.
I
Guess
think.
how
Yeah,
much she's gonna make her first year as like the top draft pick?
yeah, I saw how much.
300,000. And how much money is the sport gonna make? The women's basketball,
hmm
millions and millions. Like
Yeah.
it's
Now,
they get paid shit money.
now, if it helps, she's already getting
Well,
like
she
tons
has
of money from
endorsement
like
deals and
endorsement
stuff.
stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, the whole yeah.
But for like the women
But
who aren't going to see much playtime, like the lower round draft picks and stuff, uh, they get paid even less, and
mhm,
they're going to see less playtime, less opportunity for like getting good trades and stuff, and good like contract
yeah,
renegotiations, uh,
mhm.
and like any one of them could be injured at any time and be out of the sport like forever. So
Ah, Jimmy showing up in the chat. Caitlin Clark.
that's her name.
Thank you, sir. All
Yeah.
right. Well, before we go too far down that rabbit trail, what say we get going with the show about
Yeah, let's do the show things.
things? Alrighty. Sit tight, folks.
Howdy do. Welcome to the humanity where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I am Matt.
And I am Tommy. And tonight we're talking about something I've been talking about the past couple days. Sorry, I'm already like very distracted by so many things. Um, what are we talking about tonight, Matt? My brain decided to just not do things.
Uh, I just accidentally did the thing. Um,
No.
it's. I think. What are we talking about? We're talking about post-Christian woo, in a way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So now, I don't want to like call out this Facebook post I saw earlier, like by name or anything like that. But and as much as I usually hate picking on like individual people or even individual posts or whatever, this post just had so many things in it that I've been wanting to talk about anyway, and this guy managed to just cram it all in there. Like what like if people are familiar with the term word salad, like I referred to this as just the entire word salad bar. So and it's all centered around, as you may see by the I think I put a description up for this episode. Sorry, my brain's been fried like all day. Um, Basically, and the way different views of God, like they keep changing and morphing, largely like along with the more we're learning about reality and how all the things that these gods or individual gods maybe were basically invented and like as part of their story to explain all these various phenomena because we couldn't explain it otherwise. Then the more we start learning about these phenomena, it's like, oh, okay, it's not the god, but it's still the god doing the thing. He just it's like okay, like Zeus isn't literally throwing the lightning bolts himself, but he's still up there doing stuff, things like that. But then that makes it's at least in my experience has made it more difficult, like trying to have conversations with Christians or just theists in general, because we'll get the whole, oh, you're an atheist. Well, tell me about the God you don't believe in, because I probably don't believe in that God either. And then they go on to explain their version of God, and it's like,
You're like,
okay, I don't believe in that one either. But
how about instead I tell you about the conversation I don't want to have right now?
so yeah, so I saw this post, and it was someone I think I used to follow, but then I like saw a friend share something of him or something. And most of the posts, like I said, it was stuff I didn't agree with, and I would have been like, yeah, fine. It was a lot of that, you know. I think people just get the wrong idea about God. Like God is like all that language around. He's really just a ground of all being. He's not just some big dude in the sky with the beard and like that whole image, and like how it's all about the mystery and the journey and
But
like
then let me
love
tell
is
you
at the
about the solution to the mystery that we can't solve.
right. Yes. Yeah. It's a bunch of that language of like God is so far beyond our understanding. So let me tell you about him and how you're getting them wrong,
Yeah.
especially you atheists who are you see you're denying this God that I don't even believe in, all that kind of stuff.
So there's a lot.
Yeah. So we had a bunch of like that language about how God is just very nebulous and whatever. But what got me was like he started it with a quote, and I don't even remember who the quote was by. I'd never heard of the guy
I've got it in
anyway.
front of me. It's
Oh,
Hans
okay.
Urs von Balthasar, which is
Ooh,
a
pretty kick-ass
badass
name.
name. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that's a Viking robot's name.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. So what? So go ahead and just maybe just read that quote, I guess,
Yeah, I'll
because I
go.
don't remember all the things that he said.
Yeah, this is how his post was started. So yeah, I can see the context for it.
Mm,
Atheism can be like salt for religion. It is negative theology posited in the most absolute way. most of the time, psychologically speaking, atheism represents a disappointment with the narrowness and limitations of a certain concept of God. Hans Urs von Balthasar.
Yeah. So first of all, I love it when non-atheists try to explain. Well, this is what's really going on in the atheist's head when
Yeah.
he's being an atheist. That's always my favorite. Um,
So
that's one thing that I know I could say that I at least don't remember like ever like as a Christian, like I don't remember ever trying to like psychoanalyze atheists as far as like, well, this is what they're really thinking.
I
Like
made assumptions like with the
yeah.
following apologetic kinds of people when I was like,
Hmm.
having questions, and then like I just want them to go away, and then give me the old white guy that makes them go away, uh, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and then so I never really I never really thought about it myself. I think I was just confused.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really remember thinking about like atheists or atheism really very much, other than just hearing that people like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens were evil, so just don't pay attention to them. So like, okay, so I just
yeah,
didn't pay attention to them.
they were like a step
But
up from unicorns. Like I had never really met one in person. No, that's not true. There was a
yeah,
girlfriend of one of the guys in the Christian fraternity. He wasn't in the fraternity. He was just a resident at the house because
uh,
the
yeah,
house
that
needed
was me a
money.
few times. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and him and his girlfriend, um, they totally had a lot of sex in that room. I know for sure.
oh, well,
Um,
good for them.
and one time as she was leaving, you're gonna love this. She wrote on his, the college whiteboards on people's doors.
Hmm.
Well, people
Yeah,
have
yeah.
in the fraternity house, and so she wrote on there as she was leaving, "I am Satan's concubine," and and he saw it on there. I guess as he was leaving, he was like, "Well, that's on there." And then he just went to class, and he knew it was going to be a problem for all the Christians in the house, and they walked past it, and like I think a lot of people saw it, and then like somebody erased it finally, but like people
I
left
could
it
see
up
that. It's like,
there,
oh, yeah,
and
probably making noises like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, all that.
yeah. I think they
Oh man.
left it up there because his girlfriend was attractive, and so I think they liked being reminded that there was a bad girl in their house. Like that was like a little turn on or something.
Man, wish I would have known this person. Oh well.
That was before your time. It was when I was in college still.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the youngin here. So yeah. So like I said, I this is essentially influenced by a certain post and following conversation, which means to the guy's credit, like I kept like commenting and saying like issues that like that I was having with it, and he kept like having a conversation with me, which his credit,
Yeah.
that was cool. He still just kept saying more and more things, like, and again, more of the not just saying, well, this is what you think as an atheist. He wasn't doing so much of that, but at one point he even said, like, well, if you just ponder reality more, then you'll see how I'm seeing it. Like, dude.
So
Uh,
what you're saying is,
because that's something that I try really hard
yeah,
not to do.
it's like if
Because you
you
see,
thought about it more like the thoughtful people like me do,
mhm.
like
Yeah, because that's something that you'll see a lot of atheists do say. Unfortunately, they'll be saying things like, "Well, if you use your brain, you'd be an atheist," or religion's only for delusional people and
yeah,
people who are dumb and whatever. The closest thing to that I ever say, and I always try to be very careful when I say this, and well, I'm usually at least a little concerned about how it comes across. But when I talk about how I became atheist, like one of the things I say, what it really came down to is I just started just being honest with myself. But I want to make sure, like as I say that, like that doesn't mean people who aren't atheists aren't being honest with themselves. And if they would be honest with themselves, they would become atheists. Even though maybe a part of my brain maybe thinks that sometimes, but I keep him back here.
yeah. I
And
think
certainly
maybe
don't
another
talk
way to
about that
say
part
it,
of my brain live on the internet. Never. No.
maybe another way to say it would be, uh, it's okay. It's okay to have the questions you have, and it's even better to only be comfortable with answers that actually satisfy those questions in your mind.
Mm.
Like you don't. I had better. I had a concise way of saying it. Just like doubts are okay,
Mm.
and they're good because if you believe something that isn't accurate, then like why not be more accurate? And
Yeah.
if you're afraid to find the answers to a question, well, then you kind of already know what the answer probably is, and you just don't want to hear it.
Oh yeah, because you might already agree with it.
Yeah.
So,
So,
yeah.
all right. So when he starts out and say atheism can be like salt for religion, I was
First of
like,
all, I don't even know what that means.
salt makes it taste better and preserves it. I keeps it from rotting. So like, I kind of get it, but
Hmm.
also just so like, okay, sure. Like, I'm like, I don't think this is where this is going. But is he actually this person actually about to like say that they value critique of their religion? Because
Mm.
okay, sure, that's cool. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but still, salt for religion. It's like, oh, atheism serves religion. Like it's a little seasoning for religion. I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you, like, I other than that, I disagreed with like all parts of this quote. Like, basically saying that it's a non-theology or that's
Or
a
a negative.
negative theology. That's a step up
Hmm.
from non-theology, which is what the atheism is.
Yeah. Or
uh, so
some of the
like,
old quips, like it's like saying not collecting stamps is a hobby, or
yeah,
abstinence is a sex position.
and I posited it in the most absolute way. Well, sure, for some atheists, but not for atheists. Period. Like,
Yeah.
like some atheists are just like, I see no good evidence to draw these conclusions, and
Hmm. Yeah.
like that's not absolute. That's I just say at this point, I see no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nope.
Like as I said, because like I mean, I think I mentioned this like last week, a couple weeks ago, maybe, but like I feel like I'm maybe getting like maybe a little more towards the like strong atheism.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, because what I'd said before is like, okay, I'm not saying I know there are no gods. I'm saying, but if I'm honest, I would say I believe there are no gods. But
Yeah.
then I start thinking about it, it's like, really, what's the difference? I mean, if I mean, no, I
Well,
don't claim to have ultimate knowledge, but but I, but yeah, I just don't. Like I said, I just don't see any reason to think there are. So it's like,
I think
am I
the
just
danger is settling with just like camping out in the
mm,
there is no God for sure
yeah.
because
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Aaron Ra
And,
had a good quote that I heard on a podcast today with the thinking atheist guy.
oh yeah, Seth Andrews. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and he said
That was
that
good.
it was good. What was it? Making shoot. I'm not even gonna try to quote it directly because I don't remember it. Um, but it was about scientific theories and how like
Mm,
there's no such thing as a proven theory because
right.
once and you don't prove things in science, you just look for like a preponderance of evidence. Um,
Hmm.
because once you think you've proven something, you can't be proven wrong anymore. Was
Yeah.
basically what he was saying,
Hmm. Yeah.
uh, and that's true.
Hmm.
So like
Yeah.
my discomfort would be like if for myself, I wouldn't want to make a positive claim. One because I'm gun shy from like Christian days, like positive
Yeah.
claims
Yeah.
end up getting me stuck, uh,
Hmm.
and then I stop
Yeah.
paying attention, and you go back to that sin of certainty thing. Uh,
Mm,
but like, I think maybe for me it's just a language thing because if like there are plenty of theories like gravity and stuff like we're just like yeah we accept it as a fact, but it hasn't been proven. And I think it's maybe the distinction between scientific language and just like common everyday language.
Hmm.
um, and just reminding myself to like I can't live my life without making assumptions, but
Hmm.
understand
Yeah.
that like assumptions are temporary; they're not facts.
Right.
It's
Right.
like this is the most operative thing that I can function with now, and there are probably improvements to it or corrections.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause I definitely, yeah, like empathize with the whole like not wanting to put myself in a position where I'm just like camping out on a certain spot. Because I mean, this is why for so long I even hesitated so much to even just say I'm an atheist, because knowing how often and how many times my views have changed on like so many things throughout the years, like I didn't want to necessarily like put it out there. Like, so I am now, knowing that like, well, this could change, but then but I kind of balance that with, but I still want to be like honest and vocal about what I really do think right now. So right now,
Yeah,
the way I think, like I would classify that as atheist, so I might as well say it, but be willing to say, but that could change. So, but yeah, like trying to still say like, in certain terms, maybe where I am now, but knowing, okay, but that doesn't mean I have to stay here. There was one quote I heard about this concept I really liked by this guy. I don't remember what his real name is, but he goes by the name Fenriz from the black metal band Dark Throne. So he's a pretty like outspoken guy and has a lot of opinions that are very black metal, I guess. So and he talks about how people keep telling, "Oh, you have such strong opinions, such strong opinions." He's like, "No, I don't have strong opinions. Like I have extreme opinions, but they're not strong. Like I'm not holding on to them. Like I just hold them like this. Yeah, they're extreme opinions, but they can change anytime. Like I wouldn't call
yeah,
them strong." So I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I like that." So yeah, so I mean, yeah, and again, it comes down to like semantics and like what is the difference really? Like, because I would say I believe there are no gods. Like I'm even comfortable just saying the phrase "there are no gods," but it feels like a step, like another step when you say I know for sure there are no gods. It's
right.
like,
Like the first one is
yeah,
like kind of a belief, which is different than a
yeah,
faith,
hmm,
and
yeah,
or a hypothesis, I guess, is or a narrative maybe. Yeah,
yeah. Or the way I put this is basically how I live. This is how I live my life. Like I live life as if there are no gods.
yeah.
So I mean, in a way, that's really maybe like the strongest statement you can make is just how do you actually go about your day to day life? It's
Well,
like,
I think it's also more accurate than stating like what category you fall in, because
mm,
like somebody can be a Christian and other than all right. So my experience with Christianity was that it was a very binary kinds of thing. That like there were times when I was doing regular people things, and then there were times when I was doing Christian things, and even in my own family when I was like doing the Christian tasks with my kids or like Aaron and like do the Christian way of, or at least my subculture of Christianity,
hmm,
do it that way.
yeah, just
And
take charge because you're the dude.
sure, oh dude, do you have any that all right? Side beef. uh, I saw so many marriages get complicated and fraught with guys being told about the patriarchy and
Mm.
how down with the patriarchy God is and how awesome Abraham was with all of his grapiness and slaves and uh, how
No,
many.
it's all right. She's my sister. You can have her.
Sure, right, yeah, the paragon of ethics and shit.
It's basically like, did you see the Barbie movie?
No, I
Well, for those who have, it's basically like the part where Ken like got to the real world and discovered patriarchy, and then just
have
all of
you
a sudden
seen the
fully
movie?
embraced it. Yeah,
Oh my god! Of all the things you've seen,
I know.
or of all the things to see that you haven't seen since The Dark Knight.
I've seen some more movies since then. Now like my kids have got to the point where they want to go see movies. I saw it with my daughter and my sister and her husband. That was really cool.
All right, so back to the
So
patriarchy in a second.
yeah,
There's a Twister sequel coming out in July, I think, called Twisters.
yeah. So
I'm gonna go see that shit. Is it in 3D? I'll pay
I
extra
have
money
no
for that
idea.
to be in 3D.
Ooh,
Come on
yeah.
now.
Now, are they bringing back Bill Paxton? That's what I want to know.
Is he the one that's still alive?
I actually don't remember if he's still alive or not. He might not be.
If he,
Damn it.
they should CGI that bitch because,
Yes.
like, he was already CGI. Let's be honest. It's
Uh,
like Bill Paxton is
yeah.
himself.
So maybe Chris will go see it with us. So yeah.
No, that would be amazing. Yeah. Oh, maybe get a little like herbal supplement beforehand. Just freak the hell out.
See if we can get it to actually work on me.
Ooh, man, I don't know if that's a good time for it to work for the first.
Well, that just means well, what you said. This it's over the summer, right? So we'll just have to get together sometime
Yeah.
before then and
So,
try to warm me up to it. So, uh, yeah.
the guy who was
Jimmy confirming the sad news. Bill Paxton is
oh,
deceased.
Helen
Oh,
Hunt is not deceased. She might be in it.
oh,
But so Bill
yeah.
Paxton and the other guy who's even a way better actor, whose name I can't remember. Um, shit. He.
From the Twister movie.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I,
it also had Philip Seymour Hoffman, but he's
that's
also
who it
dead.
was.
Okay.
That guy carried that movie.
Oh yeah.
Helen
Hmm.
Hunt was she a decent actress, but like her part was not great. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
written super well. Bill
Hmm.
Paxton was great because I swear they wrote it just for Bill Paxton to show up and talk as himself. Um,
Yeah.
back to what we were doing: patriarchy. Patriarchy
Yes.
can ruin marriages, especially when
Hmm.
they didn't start with the patriarchy being a thing in their relationship.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a hard left turn to take right there.
More, more like a hard right.
Accurate. Accurate.
Okay, so this opening quote, like, yeah, it's not necessarily absolute. When you, this is accurate, but he's just attributing it to the wrong part, where he says atheism represents a disappointment. False. I think what leads to atheism, like the deconstruction period,
Hmm.
that is absolutely it represents a disappointment with the narrowness and limitations.
Hmm.
Like that's a pretty good characterization for a lot of people. Um, but like, so by the time it's atheism, um, I think what atheism represents is the acceptance of the lack of congruency of a theological God with the measurable reality. Uh,
Hmm.
and yeah, so that's it. Like, I think the narrowness and the limitations was as far as he got when he was in his Dark Nights of the Soul or whatever he called it.
Hmm.
That's probably as far as he got. So he was like, "That's atheism." It's like the Christians who are like, "I deconstructed," and you're like, "And I came back stronger." And you're like,
Like not that. Like you don't want to
maybe
tell people how to deconstruct, but I mean,
right,
there's. I mean, but there's got to be a point at which you can say, okay, you really aren't doing it right. 'Cause it's like saying, okay, there's no like one correct way to make a sandwich.
yeah.
But if you say, okay, I'm going to make a sandwich, and then you just start like I don't know, grilling a steak and then just eating it, like okay, that's not that is not doing a
Or you
sandwich
just get
right.
a piece of bread wet on one side with something, and you're like, "I'm done."
Or you like just play golf, or it's like there is, as much as like people like to say there's no wrong way, okay, there are wrong ways to do it, like because if you so this is something we might have to do soon, like is starting doing sermon reactions, particularly with the
Oh yeah.
series that this certain church whose name rhymes with Schmoss Roads.
Well, we can
They
say the
did.
name of the church. I think we
I know
should.
we have before, but I wanted to do it like that because it was funnier,
Oh no, that's true.
right? People
Yeah.
watching, please tell me that was funny. But but yeah, so they did a sermon series a few years ago
Oh, can I say that's the
on.
lamest name for a church?
Well, it was they started in the '90s. I mean, that's just kind of
Yeah. Do you know how many
it.
other churches that have the same name? Because they're like, it's cool.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you. See, I'm
Yes.
funny.
Proof.
Damn it. So it's on the internet now, so it's true. But yeah, they did a sermon series on deconstruction, which I went into when I just heard they were going to do a sermon series on deconstruction. Like, okay, this will be interesting to kind of see their take. But then
Right.
just once
There'll
I
be some
saw,
spicy moments for sure, but like I wasn't expecting it to be horrid.
yeah, but once I saw what they titled it, all hope was gone. They titled their sermon series on deconstruction. Do you remember what they called it?
No.
Rock solid.
Oh yeah. I was like, oh,
Which
this
that's got to
is.
be the worst name for a good series on on deconstruction ever. Now it very
Yeah.
much fit the way they actually went with, but yeah, stay tuned for that. We'll get to those. Which
Oh man.
I don't know
Well,
how
I'm
we're going to
finally at a
handle that
place.
because those were like full like 30 or so minute sermons. But
Yeah.
when people saw our first attempt at doing video reactions, it took us an entire episode just to go through 5 minutes.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna have to clip it up, I think.
yeah, yeah, this will take some homework. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we got hit the 3 bullet points that he always hits.
yeah.
It's always three,
Hmm.
and sometimes when it's
Yep.
four, you're like, dude, that should have been three. Like that fourth one was shit.
That was just filler. But
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So we were talking about deconstructions. That like, so where were you going with that before
um,
the?
I was just gonna say he ends with it like the narrowness and limitations, and I would say, yeah, the limitations of theology is that it's a bad theory. Like now, okay, for a time period, best theory possible, right?
Mm,
Like Christianity
yeah.
was kind of an improvement on some things originally. A bit more like reality doesn't seem to jive with some of the things um, with Judaism, like uh, the treatment of the poor and the neglected that had kind of like crept into it. They're like, yeah, okay, so I know that our religion says this thing about how we do this and all that. Or like, but like my heart says this is bad. And so it was
Mm,
people starting to listen to what they might call the voice inside
hmm.
that just was like, no, this is bad, this is wrong. Like, there's a better way to do this. Uh, yeah. So, and then somewhere that stopped, or like the improvement, or the improvement is kind of a loaded term. The accuracy, like increasing the accuracy of a theology to match with what we know about reality. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Reality, man.
the next things
Real, re,
that
Reality's a bitch.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna paraphrase the next things because I'm gonna
Hmm.
spare the word salad.
Yeah. Oh, but
So
one more thing I just wanted
yeah,
to mention with the whole like, yeah, we may have covered this, but like my brain has words it wants to say about it. So
do it.
yeah. So, but the whole concept of atheism being like just a disappointment with like
Hmm.
a certain like narrow view of God, because that's an accusation that like atheists get. It's like, oh, well, you just believed in the wrong version of God,
It's like, oh,
and
you're just weak and sad.
yeah, well, because like so, and yeah, sure, there may be some atheists who like they grew up like with like a certain denomination, certain like view of God, and they're like, well, this just makes no sense. I'm just going to be an atheist, and like, yeah, sure, there may be like other views, but I mean, but if that's all they were exposed to, and that because I mean, it would be really nice if God were to actually show up and give us like a concrete like
Dude,
way to
his
view him or something. But
right, the best
so, but
attempt that we have is the Ten Commandments, of which there's two versions, and one of the versions
mhm,
is kind of shit. Like it's
yeah, yeah. So
nothing in
people are
there
left.
about don't do the graping, don't do the slavery, like important things.
Hmm. I know, right?
Keeping any society together. Where you're like,
Yeah, and or so, this one post I saw is like, it's like couldn't have God like dedicated like at least one or two of the Ten Commandments who like don't own people, don't rape. And it's like he's like nope.
Seriously,
Like he's like I could. God's like I could have put those in, but it had to be 10. It's like why
maybe,
do you have to keep it at 10? Like it just had to be 10. He's like literally three of them just say that you're God.
and maybe don't kill your kids for being disobedient.
Yeah, instead of specifically telling them to do that. So so yeah, so when people like are like brought up with this one like narrow view and they say, well, this doesn't make sense, this seems completely made up, I'm just going to reject the whole idea. So people, oh, but you haven't heard these ideas. The problem with that is, and at least this was my experience, once you realize that whatever, well, okay, this wasn't specifically my experience because I had so many views of God. Like I grew up very like fundamentalist Calvinist, went through like more like progressive evangelical or more charismatic, more like progressive Christian to like panentheism, universalism. Like, so I was like basically the entire range of at least Protestant Christianity. I kind of hit at least all the highlights or whatever of, but for someone who hasn't, like, so, and at least this part of this way of thinking was my experience. So for someone who, if they were just exposed to one specific view and to them, okay, this seems completely made up and just man-made, like doesn't seem to be any
Yeah,
actual, at least divine truth to it. So then someone comes up, oh, Jeffy tried this one, but it's almost like once you see one as man-made, then you kind of see how all the rest of them are also man-made.
it's like kind of like if you get disgusted with like
Yeah.
McDonald's and somebody goes, "Have you tried rallies?" and you're like, "All right." Side comment: I figured out. I used to like rallies, but I figured out why it started to repulse me. Okay,
Mm.
their little like rallies huts are like the same colors and general shape as an ambulance.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I started,
Mm.
especially since my dad was taken away in an ambulance twice, and
Mm.
one of the times he had passed away. Anything, they're like, they got that red stripe on the side with the white, and they're like, "You give me good food." And like, first of all, doubt it. Your place is tiled like a rest. Your place is tiled like a public restroom, and
It's like a rest stop that just started making burgers.
it's like it's weird. There's not a urinal on the outside.
So I just had to make do.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
It's like, what officer? The context clues. You can't blame me.
Oh yes, the context clues defense
I did pee
works
on a
none of the time.
courthouse in where was I? Hattiesburg, near Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Well, I mean, what else are you gonna do down there?
Pretty sure a cop pulled up, or right after, or we were getting in the car and we're like, "Hey, man," and he just kind of
He's
like
like,
whoop whoop, and then like we just pulled off.
yeah. He's like, you're white as you were, so,
Dude,
because that's how they
no
roll
joke.
down there.
No joke. Dark juju down there. That sounded racist. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
No, like the racism is palpable. Like you can cut it with a knife. That's where Ole Miss is, I think.
Mm,
Isn't that where Ole Miss is in Hattiesburg?
maybe that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Uh,
Someone in the chat, let us know if that's where Ole Miss is.
well, there was a racist thing that happened at Ole Miss. There was a pro-Palestinian protester, and this fraternity showed up to heckle the protesters, but they really singled out this one black woman student who was protesting, and they started doing like stuff in the 50s that like even the racist people were like, come on. They're like making monkey noises and going ooh
Uh,
ooh ooh and making monkey gestures, and it's bad. And
yeah.
one guy from the fraternity got suspended and kicked out of the fraternity. Like, and I know, like Ole Miss, you have a problem, like a systemic problem.
Yeah.
and balls on those protesters. Like in
Yeah.
Mississippi, you're gonna protest for a liberal cause. Come on now.
hmm Yeah.
um,
Mad respect. Like if any of you people happen to be watching, we'd love to have you on the show. Talk about your experience. But
seriously, tell me about what you're actually on both sides. Tell me what you were protesting for.
so Jimmy with the like this is like How uncreative can you be with the name of a town? University, Mississippi.
Dude, Mississippi
Fucking
is always
kidding me?
on brand.
Maybe it's Mississippi State that's in Hattiesburg. I don't know,
I'm
but
gonna.
thanks for coming through. Like Jimmy's our background fact checker for the evening, apparently. So appreciate you, dude. Um, yeah.
uh,
So anyway,
maybe the
so
University of Southern Mississippi.
ah, oh, Southern Miss. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, but still, Mississippi is Mississippi.
yeah, yeah. Friggin'
No, it's interesting to visit. Went there with an ex-girlfriend for a wedding.
ooh, Jimmy lived there in the '80s. Ooh, that props to surviving, dude.
Seriously, man.
Glad
No,
you're
that
here.
Mississippi. Mississippi just barely beats out Alabama as America's dingleberry.
Just barely. Just
I mean, that says a
barely.
lot because Florida actually looks like a dingleberry.
Yeah. It really looks more like America's like limp, shriveled dick. But yeah, no, in the military. Well, thank you, sir. I think it was Air Force, if I remember correctly. So yeah, man.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so just this whole idea of, well, you just haven't heard the right version of God, or your version of God is so narrow. But no, it like I said, it's really once you, at least for me, it's like once I realized, because that's what I kept doing is I kept going from like version to version to version, because like, well, this version clearly isn't correct. This is things that like people just got bad ideas about and corrupted, but this is the real one. It's like oh no, this is and then I was like, wait a minute, all of these seem made up. Like again, Jamie with the confirmation, yes, Air Force. Thank you again. Um, but yeah, so yeah, it's again, this that attitude is like, well, once you've heard my version of God, well, first of all, like, where did you even get your version of God?
So that's it. All right, that's a decent lead into
Well, good.
what he says next. All right, so and then he starts talking about the existence of God and how it's useless to argue about the existence of God, and then immediately goes in to say that to say what God is. I think now you're making an argument for what God is or isn't, and
Yeah, I found usually saying it's useless to argue about the existence of God. That usually means that you don't have any good arguments, and you're
yeah,
tired of people telling
no.
you that.
So here's where like where I kind of where I said before we started recording that I'd agree with what he thinks his sentiment is. where
Hmm.
where he talks about uh, yeah, come
Yeah,
on,
because there have to be versions, like because if you don't have the real thing, we just gotta keep.
that's like multiverse talk, where like this is the god of Earth 347, All right, so he says it's useless to argue, but then he goes on to make an assertion about what God is, which is
Hmm.
technically an argument. And explains that he thinks that God is the word that we use for the big meaning, that we feel that permeates everything all the way down to like everything that is, um, and that it permeates all the way down even to meaninglessness, which he redefines as unfulfilled, which is kind of
Yeah, where it says
revealing.
like, yeah, meaningless means meaning unfulfilled. I'm like, does it?
So why not use that word, right? That's kind of revealing. So
See, here's something I can get behind. Sorry with the colors there. If you can't tell, that's a that it's a certain finger he's got there.
that's yeah, the colors blurred that out. Is
Yeah,
that
sorry.
automatic censoring shit that's happening?
No, I think it just like that color's kind of close to the kind of dark red background.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same gray
So
value. That's a reference to
yeah.
design school.
Uh, Look
Um,
at you.
so meaninglessness equals unfulfilled. Like that's true, right? If you don't have meaning in your life, you do feel unfulfilled. Um, but he's making an assertion that like God is meaning, like God is what brings life meaning, and for him, like if that's true, like I can get that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, but to like he's basically describing God and now in metaphorical terms, but stating metaphors as facts while calling them metaphors. Um, which he says in the next paragraph, he talks about metaphors, and but at even at this point, like he's speaking in like God is what we call this. That's metaphor. But then to
Hmm.
say like, and that's what it is. Okay, now you're saying my metaphor is your fact.
Yes. Yeah, and that whole like so the way he so speaking of meaninglessness as just meaning unfulfilled and not just lack of meaningless. I think that's very connected to this idea of like kind of how they seem to view atheism, where it's not just "Well, I just don't believe there are any gods." It's like no, you're like rejecting a certain version of God. You
Hmm.
know, like you kind of see, at least in my mind, those two like concepts seem related. It's like no, you really do believe there is meaning. It's just you're not feeling it fulfilled. You just haven't found it yet. Like so, because this is one of the things. Like when I was like talking with this guy, I was like, because another point, like later on down, like you may have thoughts on this, and we'll get to that. But he talks about how um, just looking at the world like scientifically, like well, that just like that sort of view fails because it ends in meaninglessness. And like, well, that's not a failure if there actually is no ultimate meaning. Then it's just accurate.
Well, I think everybody's life has an ultimate meaning, but it can be very specific to the person. And
Yeah, but well, I mean ultimate as in like some sort of like divine purpose, or
okay, I
this is
see what you're
like
saying.
yeah, like big M meaning. But yeah, individually, like sure, yeah, we can all like create our own meanings or like find meanings and yeah, just
So
wherever we want
just
because we have that freedom because there is no like meaning imposed on us from
yeah.
externally. It's all internal. Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of thinking about like what not really not trying to prove too many thoughts. Not trying to prove there's a God, but looking at like if there was, uh, based on the universe, hey, what we know about it, what are the characteristics of that God? Uh, Not super involved. Um, we can we
For
can
real.
feel a personal connection with it, but we also are having a personal experience of physics and science, and like so like if you want to put a metaphorical framework around it to like grasp it, like that's cool. I But then to say that like your metaphor is a fact, that's then you're getting into God at the gaps kind of thing, where whatever I don't know, God explains that. Um,
Mm, mhm.
so just based on the universe, like the meaning of the universe is both like it's life and death, creation and destruction. Um, and I think monotheism in general, uh, like it's all about modern monotheism. Ancient monotheism, that one God was doing like creation and destruction, but now,
Yeah.
uh, like
Hmm. Yeah.
now
Just read
God is
Isaiah.
just yeah, it's just the God of creation, just the God of the happy good times. And if it's like the awful bad times, well then that's your fault because you're not doing the happy good times thing.
Right. Or it's
Um,
Satan or it's demons. But even then, it's still your fault because you allowed Satan or the demons to do
yeah,
this stuff
and
because you weren't guarding enough.
and I've had a lot more peace just accepting like the life and death of existence, and
Hmm.
like one feeds the other. Like for something to live, something else had to die. Like that's how
Yep.
every organism lives, is by feeding off
Yep.
something else. Um,
Yeah, I think that's literally part of the definition of animal is it has to
yeah,
consume other organisms to
but
survive.
the will to survive is important for sustaining life and death. Like without the will to survive, then whatever lives off of that doesn't live as well. Like the whole thing falls apart without the will to survive. So surviving isn't a good in its own. Like it's good because it feeds more life and more death,
Mm.
which means the universe gets to continue. Like even like atoms and shit. Like, dude, there's there's subatomic particles popping into existence from somewhere.
Yeah,
Like maybe it's the 0 point energy
weird shit.
field, which is the energy that everything is made out of, uh, and like we might be able to kind of experience that, maybe only in a metaphorical way. But like that's a personal metaphor. Like this, it's not. You can't. As soon as you start to say this is how it is, now you're creating a dogma, which he says later. Like as long as we avoid dogma and creation of like structures, and I'm like, bitch. Like you've been that's what you've been doing. Like your quote started out with like proto dogma statements. Like like that's all you've been doing. You're like my metaphor is awesome, and you like it is. My metaphor is.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, because what got me about like this whole line of things is like I said, part of it like with all the things he was saying about God just being like just the ground of all being and not the father dude in the sky with the big beard and the way most religions view him. It's like no, he's bigger than that. It's more mysterious than that. It's like okay, mysterious because we can't seem to actually figure anything out about him. So most things when we're trying to figure out reality, it's like, well, I can't see any actual evidence of it, and none of the things that people are telling me about it make any sense. So that makes me think maybe there's just nothing there. But then, like, no, that just means it's mystery, and it's supposed to be mystery. It's like, or maybe it just doesn't make any fucking sense because it
Yeah,
doesn't make any
it's
fucking
kind of
sense.
like the combination of two things that don't have to go together.
Hmm.
Like there's we don't need to invent mysteries. There's plenty of mysteries in science, and like just the
Hmm.
weird behavior of quantum physics particles, how there's like some interplay with consciousness and intention, or like in order to measure. So a little bit of context. So there's an experiment, double slit experiment, where they were sending like one photon at a time at this sheet, and there were two slits in it, and the photon. So the photons would make a wave pattern on this whatever sheet they had that like indicated where the photons had hit.
Hmm.
It'd make a wave pattern when they were measuring it as waves, and then when they were measuring it as particles, they saw a particle spread on the same sheet. And so they're like, well, this is crazy because how is it like both at the same time? And then they realized that so they're like, okay, well, we're gonna like remove us from the situation, and we're gonna set up this machine to measure it as a particle. And th- then whatever the machine was set to measure it as is what it was. And so then they had to set it.
Hmm.
So the way they were able to finally take some measurements without like, so at that point, even like past tense intention is what like made it appear as. And so then they found a way to kind of like randomize it so that like a human being didn't know what it was going to be measured as, and then they were able to get some better measurements. Um, but yeah, there's something crazy things like what the person was choosing to measure it as. Something happened in the past, like it left the device as a particle or a wave, depending on what somebody decided to measure it as in the future. And
Huh.
they're like, none of this makes any sense. This is brand new physics. So that's mysterious, and the more they like
Hmm.
the smaller particles they start to investigate, the weirder shit they do. And
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
more they start to only be able to really make sense of it when they start to describe it as it's like this, or uh, or they tell a little story about like,
Yeah.
well, they seem to behave this way, and they kind of like start to like give attributes to it. They kind of personify it a little bit because it's the
Hmm.
only way they can make sense of it. Uh, so something's so there's plenty of mysteries in reality. We don't need to invent our own. Um,
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Or speaking of Dan Dennett from a couple weeks ago, like, the way he put it, he's like, the universe is like so impressive on its own. It doesn't need a boss.
Boss battle.
Yeah. I miss you, Dan. Sorry, but,
No,
but
this
yeah.
stuff is
So
good.
so yeah. So part of my problem with with, because like I said, with a lot of the stuff that this guy was saying about God, it's like, okay, I hear this stuff all the time. It's like, okay, yeah, God's just the ground of all being. Like, all right, if you want to believe that, fine. But it's how he was trying to tie atheism into it, which I think for like most of what he was saying in the post was really unnecessary. Like, just say the things you believe about God, and I don't know why you're dragging atheism into it, because trying to then judge atheism from that view of God and say, well, all these atheists, they're like denying these views of God that I don't even hold and I don't think even make any sense. So they're clearly ridiculous. It's like, okay, so because people ask questions like, well, why do atheists only go after the more like fundamentalist or like evangelical versions of Christianity or like whatever religions? Like, well, first of all, like those are the only ones. Well, first of all, at least here in the States, and even like in probably Britain, where like some of the other like new atheists, like your Dawkins, your Hitchens, were coming from. It's like just levels of like how involved in the state the church was, and
Yeah,
those were usually like more fundamentalist like
they're the ones
version.
organized enough to cause
Yeah,
damage.
right. So I mean, so that's why we go. That's where a lot of the attention is focused on, because those are, like I said, a lot ones doing like a lot of the actual like real damage. So, but when it comes to like these like much more like nebulous, like God just being itself kind of, it's like it's almost like, okay, yeah, we realize those views are out there, but at least speaking for myself, and I'm sure many other atheists, like, but we kind of don't care as much because it seems just kind of like benign, but also kind of ridiculous. It's like, okay, this just sounds like you're just making stuff up now. So it's
Well,
like,
and that person's doing their own thing,
mm,
and like this kind of person who wrote the post, like they're still kind of doing like evangelism stuff where they're like, you don't have to be an atheist because you can have this kind of belief, and this is the hybrid of the two or something.
yeah,
Um,
oh yeah. And that's another thing I pointed out when I was talking to the guy. Is actually like pretty ironic because it's like, because like him, and like I said, this like a part of me kind of hates to make this entire show about a single post because I don't want to make it sound like, but it just, this one
it's
thing just had
representative.
so many things in it that I've been wanting to talk about anyway. So it's like, oh, thanks for the example, dude. I have no idea if you're ever going to see this or not, but if you do, hey, you want to jump on and talk to us about it? That's cool. But um, but what I told him was like, it's so ironic that views like this of God in a lot of situations are presented as, like you said, like alternatives to atheism. It's like, oh, you didn't like these other versions of God that I don't like either. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you there. So let me tell you about my version that's like so much easier to
It's like,
like.
have you tried vegan Christianity? It's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, so what I told him, like, and I think this was actually like my first comment on it, is like I said, it's actually views of God like this that finally ended up driving me to atheism, because it's at that point it's like, I mean, I didn't necessarily put this in these like crude of terms at the time in my brain, but now looking back, it's like, it's okay, at this point we're just making shit up. Like, I
Yeah. All right.
oh,
So I'm actually gonna read this next little paragraph because like I wanted to say something, but like it's not gonna. It'll make more sense if I just read it. Um, so this is where he goes into like very
Yeah,
metaphorical like
yeah.
statements, and where
You
I'm
read it while
like,
I get another beer. Be right
yeah,
back.
and so I'm kind of, I kind of get where he's going. I kind of used to be there. All right, so he says, God is that current of aliveness and meaning in all things. God, in quotes, is a metaphor for that spirit, which is originally called ruach, and it means wind or breath. He said breathe, but it means breath. But but that's not literal either. Also, a metaphor for that current of life, that living energy flowing through all things, giving it being, allowing for existence to exist at all. And yes, since it is love, which we haven't established, it is personal, and
No, no,
you
no.
could
But
be intimately
it
acquainted with this cosmic love, express it poetically, mythically, mystically, call it a lover, a father, or a mother. There are so many things in there where I'm like, go one step further, and now you're secular and an atheist, and I like the problem I have with a lot of what's said in here is that like it's an is statement. It's like, yes, I agree. There's something about like a current of aliveness and life, and like walking through the woods, and you kind of like feel a connection between everything, and you realize like you're a part of it, and like that's all beautiful, and that's where like poetry and like songs and like the premises for like great movies and stuff comes from. But as soon as you start to say it is this, you've killed it. You know what I mean? Like as soon as
yeah.
like one person's experience can't be like absorbed by another because you've given a framework to it,
Mm,
now it's not magic anymore. And like sure, it was always science. Like there were always like brain chemicals and stuff you could measure. The experience of it though does feel magical. And just because it feels magical doesn't mean it is. Like, but you can
yeah.
still relish in kind of like the otherworldly experience and the feeling and the emotions. Um,
Hmm.
I think that's the sweet spot to say like no one is
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
this same experience as I am. People have had similar ones, and we can bond over that. Uh, but like, I think I really think we're past the point as humans where we have to say that our experience is the experience, or this
Mm,
group's experience is like this language is what defines the experience of being alive. Um,
mm,
there's just more.
yeah. Yeah. And also, quick shout out. Like, so I'm just going with the cheap Yingling or
No, it's a
ring
classic.
rings. Because I'm
Hmm.
like, at this point, it feels like I'm
The
gonna
ring
need to.
rings.
Yeah. Yeah. Inside joke for some friends of ours.
It
But
shouldn't be like it's just funny.
okay, I'll like.
Just calling them ring
First of all,
rings.
like, I kind of, some of them may be watching. I have no idea. But so with some friends of ours, we were like going on a camping trip, and we were like in a big group text talking about like who's bringing what kind of thing. So our one friend, he's like he was talking about like some beer he was going to be bringing. So and he meant to type Yinglings, but it came out ring ring, and like autocorrect kept like making it ring ring, and it just kept doing that over and over, like 4 or 5 times. He's
He's like
like,
ring
"Damn it,
rings,
ring
ring
rings,
rings, ring
fuck!"
rings.
So we're like, "Fuck it, they're ring rings now. That's just what they're called." So and also like with my little koozie that's crocheted by my daughter.
Ooh, nice.
So yeah, she made a
Very
few of these. So
very
my little
cozy.
yeah my little beer sweater. So
You can actually
so
buy those that has like little short sleeves on it.
yeah. Yeah, but those would bother my hands because it would like touch parts of my hand. So like, but yeah,
Right.
this feels good, feels right. So, but yeah, so
Wait, you know how
what were
there's
you just talking?
fingerless gloves?
I
Like
do.
I I really think like for the alternative, like the alterno kids who are like, I just want to buck every system, every trend, palmless gloves, right? Where it's just where it's just like crocheted finger cots for all your fingers, like those little finger condoms.
I like that. But so Chris with the comment here, my grandpa would always order it as something different that sounded similar, so we always said ping ping or ling.
No, I like Ling Lings because it's mildly racist, and like Yingling is super popular in like the mildly racist parts of Pennsylvania.
uh, but that's good. Yeah, like same thing. Like my mom, like so. If anyone's heard of this card game called Pounce, it's a lot like Dutch Blitz, which apparently is more popular. Anyway,
Dude, all right, you said pounce, and I'm like, that sounds like a sex game. And then and then would you say it was Dutch whatever?
Dutch Blitz.
Dutch Blitz sounds like a sex act. Like Dirty Sanchez, Dutch Blitz.
Oh, well, now this card game, which is a favorite for me to play with family, will never be the same. Thank you. But
It's what I do.
but anyway, so if you're not familiar with it, I won't go in the whole rules. But basically, what you're supposed to do, like when you make like the winning move, at least in pounce, you're supposed to say pounce. So, but like my mom, like she was good at, it, so she would like win around very often, but she would never remember the right word. So she would always just say like the most random shit. My favorite, and it's the only one I can actually specifically remember for some reason, she said Snapple. We're like, so we're like, all right, we're calling it Snapple now. Fuck it. So, but anyway, so what were you saying before I um, got us off on several tangents, which I was not expecting with
Man,
the ring rings?
it was just about like I kind of I kind of like where he was going with like the poeticness of it all, and
Hmm.
for me personally, this paragraph would work much better if he was describing meaning, um,
Mm,
and like the meaning that like every human can have. Like not everybody has the nature kind of experience. Some people have an urban experience like that, or like in cities, and there's the beauty of like what's been built and all that. Um,
yeah, yeah,
but like there's a reason why movies are popular, songs are popular. It's because like the content of it connects with a lot of different people, uh,
mm.
and there's also a reason why Christian music sucks. No, no, there's a reason why most like 98% of Christian music never becomes super popular. Um,
Hmm.
it's because it uses culture specific language, and like it can only speak to the people who use that vocabulary. But then if you use the vocabulary of life, um like Evanescence started out as like kind of a Christian band,
Yeah. Hmm.
but the reason why their stuff was popular is because they used terminology that was not exclusive to their subculture.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then they went I know the singer went through her own kind of deconstruction, and then they later like rejected the label of Christian band. Uh, they're like
Hmm.
some of us are Christians, some of us aren't anymore, and we just make music.
Yep.
So stop calling us a Christian band. Um,
Yeah.
it
Those suck.
it's that subculture specific language that labels the things that are like part of every person's life. That's separating. That separates
Mm.
people.
Yeah.
Um, and then when you insist on your terminology and
Yeah. But speaking of bands, yeah, Skillet and Flyleaf too.
Flyleaf was good, yeah.
Yeah, no, Skillet. The thing is, like, I listened to like I was really huge into them for like their first couple albums, like way back in the like late '90s, early 2000s. But yeah, I kind of stopped following them after a while once I got into like heavier stuff. But man, yeah. So I have no idea if like if how much you can tell like from their music, but from like their lead singer, like. think John Cooper, something like
He
that.
he
Like just
he
from
said some dumb shit in the last few years.
oh yeah, he's like said things like we got to declare war on deconstruction. Like so, as far as like his like personal statements, like super like fundamentalist Christian, like it's kind of hard to miss with that dude. Like I kind of wish I did, but yeah. Anyway,
Their music was
yeah,
all right.
yeah. I mean, for what it was good. It was fun. I actually saw them live a couple times. You know, it was
They
fun.
played at like a conference I was at once.
Huh.
Definitely only a couple hundred people there, and somehow they. I don't know if this was like their duty to the Lord or something to like do something nearly for free for like a Bible camp.
Yeah.
But I lost respect for them.
Man. Um. Yeah. What were we on before that?
I don't know. Fulfillment, meaninglessness.
Hmm.
Uh, we were talking about our own experiences.
Hmm.
I can keep talking if, and then maybe something will
Yeah.
remind
Just keep
me.
talking. Maybe it'll. Yeah.
So then he goes in to say about how like our attempts to like capture this beauty um, is awesome, and then the moment we try to cage it in doctrinal certitude, it becomes a prison. I'm like, that's what you've already been doing. It's like you
Well, see,
don't
but he
know
doesn't.
you're in a
He doesn't.
prison.
Yeah, but he doesn't call it doctrine, so it's not.
Sure, I guess I can understand somebody wouldn't think it's
Yeah.
doctrine, but like
Yeah. Like
knowing
he's
where it
not.
comes
He's
from.
yeah, and he's not saying anyone has to believe it. He's just saying like, well, if you still choose to be an atheist in the face of all this brilliance, then you're just ridiculous. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, but he doesn't feel like talking about the existence of God anyway. Apparently,
and no,
so
he's and then and I noticed that he's describing what is secular goodness as a faith or as like the beginning of a new doctrine. Um, like saying that something is the ground of all being, like that's like the height of any kind of certainty statement.
oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
it
That's a
could be anything
pretty
but this, but
yeah yeah. That's a pretty yeah because
that's
okay.
really
So I think
interesting. The
this
guy who read the book like the Sin of Certainty or something, he's all
yeah
about God.
Peter ends
Yeah,
yeah.
he's like all about the God as the ground of being or being itself. I'm like, that's kind of isn't that like all inclusive certainty?
Like but
You're
yeah.
like,
It,
son, you've shucked your own corn.
yeah, because it's still that thing is like well that's so it's like people understand that it's like a cool thing to say that like well I'm not into like doctrines and dogmas and certainties, but then they'll go on and like recite all these things, and then as soon as I say well I don't think that's real either, it's like well you can't say that. And like well
It's like I thought
yeah
we were
so
having a conversation.
yeah so yeah because this would be like so a conversation that I like found myself continually having with like deconstructing progressive Christians, like kind of on my way out. And again, one of the several things that kind of ooched me along was like, I would say, because even at the point where I start saying, like, I think I'm just like an atheist, actually, in these conversations, people started referring to me as an atheist before I even like necessarily realized that about myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I am. But like, so I'm like, yeah, I just don't see how there's any reason to believe that there is a God. But then I would start talking about things that I do believe in, and people are like, oh, well, that's God. Like whatever, like you're finding meaning in, or if you're finding love in a situation, like that's God. Like so, you do believe in God. Like, I wasn't looking for that. First of all, like I wasn't trying to. I wasn't looking for people to convince me that I do or not. But yeah, just it just comes back to how fluid and abstract and nebulous that like these definitions of God. So it's like to the point where you say, well, it's God is just being itself, and how can you not believe in being itself? So if you believe in things existing, well, then congratulations, you believe in God. It's like so that's what I was telling this guy is like, okay, you can say that like that you believe that there's like something that's just at the core of like all being and is like is in everything and through everything, but it's like at this point, like especially considering like just where like our concepts of God and gods originally came from, like this is so far removed from that. It's
Hmm.
like what's the point in even calling it God if that's what you're calling it? Like so to me that just means that and again, as much as I'm not trying to psychoanalyze them, but at least just remembering my experience. Like the reason I just kept holding on to things like that is because, like, well, I still feel like I have to believe in a God of some kind. So it's not so much. I wasn't looking at reality to see what God is there for me to believe in. I was looking at reality just to find, what thing that I find in reality can I call God that I still definitely believe is there.
Yeah.
So it just comes down to, well, if you believe in things existing, okay, well, there's a God there. Like that's it, kind of thing. Like that's just kind of how it strikes me.
I think we're wired for. So
And Jimmy
whatever happened.
and Jimmy believes in dogs. At least they're real and cute. Amen. Yeah.
So like whatever the religion, like when you use their religious terms or you have the religious experience,
Mm,
whatever that experience is mentally and physically, uh, our brains feel a need for that.
mm,
I don't. I don't think that you have to use a religious framework to have that experience. Um, like yeah, you don't need the dogma. You don't need the vocabulist of the right words to to describe the things. Um, I think the next awakening, or the next like big revival or reformation. I think it looks like the end of religion and
mm,
the beginning of experiencing reality in a spiritual way, but without needing to classify it as a separate thing.
mm.
Um,
Can get behind that.
and I think the new prophets are people like Hitchens and like the Four Horsemen, Dennett.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Non-existo rest their souls.
yeah,
They're non-existent souls.
like they're doing
Yeah.
the same kind of stuff that like Isaiah was doing, where it was super critical. They're being super critical,
Yeah.
and the ancient equivalent of calling people dumb shits. Like,
Yeah.
and and people are like, "Oh, they've really got a crazy man in the corner has a point," and and then at some
So
point they stopped taking criticisms as helpful.
So speaking of them as prophets, my mind just immediately started thinking, okay, well, which of this, thinking specifically of the four horsemen, like, okay, which one is which prophet? And for some reason, I was like, Dawkins, like, is he Jonah? Because even like Jonah just kept bitter like the whole time. It's like, well, now I don't want them to believe.
Yeah, what was
Even though, but
Hitchens?
I think Dawkins gets kind of a bad rap for like how he presents himself. Like, yeah, there are definitely some times. I mean, and I'm not going to go into like where he is on the
He's
whole like
just very
transgender
honest.
issue, but he's very just forthright. And again, like I understand his pain, like as an evolutionary biologist,
Hmm.
like just in that area in particular, how much pushback and resistance there is from religion, like specifically Christianity, to that. So I'd be pretty pissed and like not in the mood to talk politely about it either if I were him, probably. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think
So
yeah,
speaking of science, like I thought this was relevant to what we've heard from a lot of people. Um, so like science and like scientific method and like just describing the universe as a physics chemical machine. Um, it has like no other transcendent meaning, and like that fails us because it lacks
Yeah.
meaning. And like meaning is in the eye of the beholder. Like
Hmm.
every
Yeah. And
we can say like
yeah.
people in a religion can say we all have the shared meaning of I don't know, Jesus is Lord and we got to go to heaven, and like God made hell will totally send us there but doesn't want to. Well, all that kind of stuff. Like
Right.
um that no no one believes that the same way as someone else. Like everybody even hears those words and experiences those words differently than someone else. What happens in their brain when they hear that terminology and that doctrine different than anyone else because it's based on their experiences and their DNA and all that. So we all make our own meaning anyway. Like this, it's
Yeah.
already happening.
Yeah. And which is also evident, like within religion, just how many different versions there are. Because if
Hmm.
your meaning comes from your religion and it is completely external from you, then at least, I mean, first of all, you would think there would only be one religion. But even if you're granting like several different religions, there would be one version of each religion. Because if it really is external,
Yeah,
but no, but
yeah, and
but the
especially if you
fact,
have a book that's supposedly like the objective truth, like
yeah.
then how can there be any disagreement? Like
Hmm.
it would be a lot of agreement, and then somebody would be like, when he said hell, he meant bubbles, and like just people being out there. Like there would be
Yeah.
everybody on the same page, and then people who should be locked up. Like,
Yeah, so either people are just going against or trying to like redo like what the book or whatever like sacred text or whatever clearly says, or whoever wrote it is just shit at writing and wasn't able to make it understandable to everybody.
it was humanity's like best
Yeah,
attempt at understanding reality and the universe and their place in it.
yeah.
And
I mean, if there was a deity behind writing it, and they
oh,
were shit at writing it for,
sure,
yeah,
very inconsistent. Definitely
yeah.
more of a committee than a trinity.
Yeah, that's something I will still maintain. Like the people who actually wrote the Bible in particular. I mean, first of all, if in those in like the times when the Bible was written, just the fact that you could write, like that was impressive as hell on its own.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's
If
but
it's
there's also a
written,
lot of parts in the Bible that are just very well written. Like maybe
yeah,
the stuff they're saying is kind of bullshit, but at least the actual like technique and method and
yeah.
like
The earlier
yeah,
gospels, like especially Mark,
yeah,
and then it, my opinion, it gets gradually worse. Um, but
yeah.
like,
Mark had a lot of cool like techniques and
yeah, like a
everything.
lot of like
Yeah.
melding so many different uh, like pagan god stories with
Hmm.
really just cramming like all of the theologies together.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Mark
a
is
lot of
basically
home.
saying like, can't we all get along? Like,
Yeah, but there's also you can see a lot of Homer influence. I think it's like from
oh
the
yeah,
Iliad. Like I think, and a very specific example because this was something like reading through like Mark that like always like confused me. Like you'll see like the passages where Jesus will like do some like miracle or something, and then he'll tell him like, "Well, don't tell anyone what I just did." Like he
hmm,
looks like he's trying to keep himself a secret. It's very much like I think it was Odysseus when like people thought he was dead, but then he like came back. But like when he came back, he was kind of in hiding, so he would like
yeah,
be meeting people. It's like, oh, don't tell him. So he's like, so I think it was specifically hearing from it was Dr. James Tabor when he was talks about Mark. He's like drawing all these illusions and
yeah.
saying like, no, this is what Mark is doing. Like he's making Jesus look like Odysseus. It's and he says in the way he's doing it, it's actually pretty brilliant. Like so, yeah. So look that up. James
Like,
Tabor, Mark,
I
awesome
also
stuff.
love how Mark ends where like the image of God is dead, and God and Mark just like
Mm,
ends it basically like, now what? Like
yeah, yeah.
the image of God is dead. Now what? And like it just totally comes across as
Yeah, because the
yeah,
original ending of Mark ends with like the women showing up at the tomb and the
right,
body's gone. And then it
yeah,
says, and then they went away scared and told no one, basically. And then they added like an ending to Mark later, and then like the rest of the Gospels was like, oh, they actually told everybody, and that's like, you know. But yeah, the original like ending to like the Gospel story. 'Cause that's the other thing, like you got to remember, like Mark
and it's
was the
pretty,
first story of the Gospel, so for it to end
and it
like
was
that,
50 years later. Like
yeah, Hmm. So yeah, pretty close as far as the Gospels go.
And we've
But
seen
yeah,
how quickly things get wacky in like particular Christian like categories and stuff.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
how fast did fundamentalist Christianity get fascist under Trump? Like
Hmm.
I mean, like it was always there. Basically, it's like all that. This needed
Yep,
somebody to
yep,
tell them it was okay, and they're like,
yeah.
"Cool," because I've got all these plans.
It's like as soon as you just got like the tiniest hole in the dam,
Hmm.
like all that stuff that was already there, just pushed its way
Yeah,
through. Yeah, yeah.
and then
So
and then he puts things in the Bible. Like in the Bible it says, "Don't add to the Bible." And he's like, I'm pleased to support or whatever. Like sell this Bible that has all of our founding documents in it, plus all of the Bible, King James version, of course, because if there's one thing our founding documents valued was British translations. That just occurred to me. Like how
oh,
fucked up
that's
that
awesome.
is.
That's awesome. I love that.
Like death to the king, but his Bible's cool.
America. Fuck.
You're like
Oh,
freedom, but also fascism.
but it's God's fascism is the right fascism though. So apparently. So,
Shit, that reminds me of something, and I can't totally remember. It was like the best blank is is the, oh shit. It was funny, and I remember being sacrilegious too. It's like one
oh,
of those
that's
sacrilegious jokes that when
ooh,
you're a Christian,
sacrilegious.
yeah,
Why didn't we name the show that?
it's like okay, why is it when you're a Christian you can make sacrilegious jokes as long as you're being ironic? What like
Well, not in some of the Christian circles I grew up in, but yeah.
can you imagine Jesus on a skateboard? Right? Can you imagine Jesus smoking weed on a skateboard? That's a bridge too far. Come on now, you've gone. They
Uh,
have actually found, by the way, uh, it was a Jewish worship site in like from like ancient
mm,
Judea or one of the two
mm,
kingdoms. In the temple on the altar, they determined
mm.
in the oil burned on the altar there was cannabis compounds.
Yep.
So they were hotboxing in the temple, and then they're like, "God is real," and
And his dick is enormous.
you're like, "That snake is talking to me."
It all makes so much sense.
It's
Yeah.
like that snake coughed, and then his head turned into a cube, which somehow like rotated into a pyramid, and then it just went into like blue and green waves.
And it gave me a pomegranate. And
Told me it was a vagina. I was.
yeah. So so all that to say, we should start slaughtering sheep and goats and stuff.
Well,
Agreed? All right.
speaking, that just reminded me of what's her nuts from North Dakota, South Dakota,
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't remember her name. Yeah.
and she had that book where like her ghostwriter bragged about stories that she killed a year and a half old puppy
Hmm.
because it was ornery, and
Yeah.
and like universally people are like, that's a you problem.
Yeah, and a big one too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Then she's like, but it's fine because I killed a goat and 3 horses next.
Yeah, because you see, we believe in dogs, so we don't take kindly to
Yeah,
such things. So
I don't know. Capital punishment for free will and dogs.
yeah, like if you don't like the dog, just like get rid of like give it to someone else.
It's like,
Something. Yeah.
But that's how it's done on a farm, Tommy. If your dog's too happy around chickens and your male goat is stanky, they need to be killed. Here's the thing. It's not a mystery. Male goats stink. All right?
Mm-hmm.
They smell like the biggest ball sack, apparently. Like the phrase musk, it is not like, or the word musky is just not even, apparently, like, it's just, they stink. So that's her fault for having a male goat. Like, if you have a farm and you're upset that your male goat stinks, like,
Mm-hmm.
like that, I don't know. That it's just so dumb. either
Yeah.
you're a shit farmer, or you're just mad at reality, and you're just going to shoot things to solve that problem. Like,
Yeah. All right. Was there any other? Did you have any other like points or things you wanted to
well, I
speak
was
on
going to say
specifically?
he starts talking about transcendence and like we're trying to get to that mystery, that transcendent thing,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
physics
But.
itself is plenty transcendent. It's like physics upon physics within physics. Like it's um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
everything produces and everything affects something and is affected by something.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Boy,
magic
talking up.
enough.
So since we have some people watching and interacting, I'm just going to throw a link out there in the chat. If anyone wants to join us, if you have thoughts you'd like to share or want to talk with us or tell us how much you think Matt's shirt is awesome, because I love it.
Pew
Yeah.
pew. What is it? Pew pew rush beep boop rush. It's a
That's
Star
it.
Wars thing.
That's pretty much, yeah. So yeah, click
All right.
on the link, join in the chat. I will say if you're watching it on if you're on your phone, like don't click on it in Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching. Like just copy the link and paste it like in a separate browser. That works much better. Usually like
I'm
Chrome
gonna
or I
grab
found
another beer.
yeah, or I found on if you're on your iPhone, I've actually found like using Safari works. But yeah, if you're on your laptop or anything else, Chrome does just fine. But yeah, if anyone's wanting to join in. So yeah, let's see if I had any more specific thoughts on this. Um,
All right, for my next beer,
ooh, yes, do tell.
Urban Artifact Ward. It is a vanilla key lime fruit tart beer. Normally, I hate these, but for some reason, the lime flavored ones I really like. I think it's because it's the only one that tastes like a lime. The other ones, it's like it just tastes like off bananas or something. You're like,
Hmm.
we yogurtified a banana. Isn't it delicious? No.
Apparently that sounds delicious, but
No. Okay. See, I like a Bavarian wheat beer that's very clove and banana, but that's like actual banana flavor, not like I sat naked in a bathtub full of bananas and then brewed that. Where it's just like, it's like awesome. This tastes like a peasant.
see, that's why I don't like German wheat beers. Thanks for elucidating that for me. I did notice like once I threw the link out for people to join, we actually have fewer viewers now.
Like,
Like,
oh no, we've been accepted into the tribe. I
uh,
think that fits with our brand. Remember how we were talking about like people watch it, but they seem to not tell anyone? And I said, I think it's because I think people are like they don't want people to know that like these are thoughts they have.
yeah, which I get. So that's something. So when yeah, it's like, well, you're still here, Chris. Why don't you jump on? That'd be fun. But
No, I get it.
yeah.
I mean,
So
being
something we
introverted and all
did
that.
like back in the like old podcast days is like we had a Facebook group and it was private. I mean that still didn't get like super like busy as far as engagement and stuff, but
Yeah.
if that's something people would like us to kind of like, I mean, the group is still there. I think I even went back and like renamed it, like
Hmm.
with all like the humanity and stuff. So people like we're still interested in something like that. So if you would like to like communicate with us more, because I've had a few people just kind of like private messaging me on stuff. Like that's how we've
Yeah.
got like a couple times we've had viewers give us like suggestions of things to talk about. Which is really cool. So
And it's also a place to discuss things with
yeah,
each other where
yeah,
like it's privately it can't the conversations can't be shared outside the group if to someone who is not in the group.
right.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so it's a great way to kind of small group it without the judgment and the conformity,
Hmm.
and hopefully without the
Yeah,
fear that like somebody won't be welcome if they have their own idea.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so if that's something the folks should be interested in, let us know. Because something else, like I put out there a little bit ago, like as a poll, but like then no one responded. Was is another thing we talked about maybe doing is like releasing the episodes in like audio only version,
Hmm.
just like through like wherever you get podcasts, so like Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
I think that could
places
be
like that.
useful.
Yeah, so if anyone would be interested in that, let us know. We can put those out there as well. But also, like I said, we understand if like you maybe don't necessarily want like the public to know like that you're like into this or whatever. But seriously, like for people like I mean, obviously we're not doing this for like money or anything at this point. Like we're not nearly big enough for any
And we'd have to edit. We'd
monetization
have
or
to
anything.
bleep
But
some words out for that
yeah,
shit to happen.
but we would still love like more people to hear this. So
Yeah.
if any of these episodes are things that you really kind of jive with or whatever, like you may not have to like post it publicly, but maybe like if you just have any other friends who you think might be into it, just like share it with them like privately or whatever. Like, hey, check these guys out. They're I don't know, they have beards. That's a thing, and I don't know whatever.
Tommy has no hair. Matt has all of Tommy's hair.
That's where it went. Damn it. Um, but yeah, so because that's one thing I found because I have because like Matt said, like I found like there are a lot of people who find the kind of things that I talk about and share like appealing or things that they're interested in, but it a lot of times it seems to be like a very private interest. And it's like they'll like message me privately. It's like, hey, I really love what you're saying, keep it up. But it's like
Yeah.
so I get the whole like maybe not wanting to share it like or talk about it publicly, but like for real, if
What was
yeah,
that?
if
What was that weird slogan we had where it was like, "Where are the parts of you you hide from other people?"
yeah, or well, we say all the quiet things out loud. Yeah, that
That would
kind
be
of thing.
funny
But
because
yeah,
that might get us some Tucker Carlson fans if we say things like we say the quiet things out loud.
ooh, yeah,
He recently said on Joe Rogan that
I saw that.
did you see that? That's
Yeah,
what Aaron Ra and Thinking
Seth
Atheists were
Andrews.
talking about.
Yeah.
Where
Hmm.
he's like, I think evolution's been largely disproven,
Yeah, it's like no
and
one believes that anymore. It's like, yeah,
Joe Rogan's like, some people gave Joe crap because he was just kind of like, okay, sure, tell me about that, how so? And honestly, I think Joe's like, all right, this is gonna get more people that haven't been listening to my stuff listen to it, and he's like, this is batshit. Let me just let him hang himself. And
yeah, because Joe, like, he's still like, I don't know if you want to say pushed back, but he's still like Tucker would say something. He's like, really? Are you sure? Like, because there's like the fossils and like,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Like, I haven't watched a ton of his stuff, but like when he's
yeah,
into it and agreeing, his tone of voice is different. He was really like, "Oh, this isn't what I expected, but I'm a comedian, so like I'm gonna laugh my ass off later."
yeah. Yeah, it's like I really don't know what to think of Joe Rogan. I mean, I haven't seen like a ton of his stuff, but I guess I never really had much of a strong opinion on him, like either way. Like I never
No,
loved him or hated him. It's like
he has his
he just
moments.
yeah, it seems like he's just a guy doing a podcast on things that he finds interesting, and I don't know, but
I think when he talks about trans stuff, he's an idiot. When he
I
talks
haven't heard
about
that.
like
Yeah.
the biology of men and women and all that, horribly ignorant.
Okay. I guess I haven't heard much of that stuff, but
No, that's one of his
that's unfortunate.
that's one of his big things where that's one of the categories of things that he will discuss where it just completely turns some people off for good reason, because it's like one of the categories where he's close-minded.
Mm.
Most other things he's open to changing his opinion. um, he has some kind of knee-jerk
Mm.
thing about that. I get if somebody's uncomfortable with a topic or an idea, but to then translate that discomfort into a factual statement about it, it's like there's a difference between something being
Mhm.
wrong and you're uncomfortable with it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And just because you're uncomfortable with it doesn't mean you have to stay uncomfortable with it. Like
Right.
I got news for everybody who's like super uncomfortable with trans people. Like it's a new thing for everyone. Like even people who are openly trans, like it's a new thing. Like a few decades ago, this was something people hid and suffered because of it. Like it's just recently a thing that like
Yeah.
where people are like it's okay to be me. And
Yeah. At least relatively okay. There's still some places where that's still not the case, but yeah.
yeah, I mean as just the concept that it's okay for someone to be themselves and without restriction. Uh, that's a new societal thing.
Hmm.
For sure, it is not. It's not even safe to be out, even as like gay and like seriously. Still, there's parts of the country where that's dangerous, and it is, and that's not. It's not a joke. I'm not saying
Yeah.
like it's terrible and ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
And anytime I'm gonna vent for a second, anytime I hear
Do it.
some libertarian shitstick say things like, "Oh, I don't think anybody should be mistreated for who they are," and yeah, I think it's wrong. People are assaulted, and like trans women are one of the most assaulted slash raped like categories of people. Uh, like it's like, but we gotta handle it according to our principles and according to like the proper like legal way. And like, no. It's like, no, people are getting hurt. People are hurting themselves because of like the culture that we have. So if we have to bend like some category of law to like end it
Hmm.
sooner, fine. Like, yeah, make actual legislation later so it can't just be regulated away by some agency, but start
Hmm.
with the agency applying something because
Yeah.
people are being hurt now. Like
Yeah.
when
You
somebody's
handle that.
like, for the sake, oh no, like, but for the sake of our principles, we should hurt the people or let them be hurt until we can meet up with our principles. I just want to
Like
like, just want
like
to,
no. The principle is that shit needs to stop right now. That's your principle. Go with that.
right. And to watch some, like, there's this show I watch in the morning called Rising. It's from the Hill. It's on YouTube and on News Nation, which is a cable channel. Um, there's this guy on there who like he's a decent guy despite himself, basically.
Those are the best.
And his name is Robbie Suave. He's one of the senior editors at Reason magazine. It's that,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
he's such a tool and doesn't know it. And oh my god, I guess they discuss things from a left and right perspective, and his co-host was like sure, this isn't getting the Department of Education or whatever it is to make these things to make these guidelines that protect trans kids in public schools. Uh, sure, like we're bending some concepts a little bit within the regulation stuff, um, but she said, but kids are being hurt now. He's like, his argument was, well, we have to follow like the proper principles, and she's like, how does that help kids now? And she's like, that's not going to happen anytime soon, where we get like a legislation, like a national legislature law protecting whoever. And he's like, yeah, I know that. He's like, but that's how we have to do it. And she's like, but kids are being hurt now. And he just didn't get it. He's like, but that's a slippery slope. And I'm like, son, you've pointed out logical fallacies before. I know you know that shit's a fallacy. It's like, why is it a fallacy? Because a slippery slope stops somewhere. It's nonsense to say, like, if we take one step in this direction, that path never ends. That's nonsense. Nowhere does that ever happen.
Yeah. And it's like, and there's this other slope where people are already slipping down that we need to stop right now. So
assertion. Don't bother with any evidence.
Right.
Or if you present evidence, I think you have to present like contrary evidence too, because I think it's dishonest to just be like, look, this proves what I'm saying. You're like, okay, but all this other stuff disproves what you're saying.
Yeah. But speaking of evidence, kind of bring this back and like make sure like there's nothing else you wanted to say, like as far as like wrapping up the
we might have run off.
Yeah.
I hope we didn't run off.
What? Chris. We may have. But
no, I get it. There are things that sometimes I get too excited about something, and it can be a lot for people to handle.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's the autism, or the tism, as my cousin calls it, who's also autistic.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't thinking you were being too much about anything, but I mean, that's just me. Maybe it's also the tism. I don't know. So, but speaking of evidence, so yeah, what comes down to like what one of my main frustrations, and again, one of the reasons I end up leaving like faith and like religion, Christianity, theism, all that, it's because there are just so many different versions of it, and like because anytime I would say something, well, this is a problem I have with Christianity, and then invariably there'd be so many Christians like just coming out of the woodwork saying, well, that's not real Christianity. Like whatever you're talking about, that's just crazy stuff. Here, let me tell you the real thing. Like there's just so many different versions. Like it's like nailing Jello to the wall, basically. Like as soon as you like it's. So to me, that's part of the problem, is because there is no definitive version of it.
Yeah.
To like the comment on, because you would think if what you're proposing is real, that there is a God who wants a relationship with people, and he has a certain way he's wanting us to live or go about things, or certain things he wants us to think about him. Like the fact that we apparently are still pretty clueless on that after like how many tens of thousands of years of human civilization and existence. So yeah, like I said, that's one of the things that ultimately had me leaving is just like, yeah, because when it comes to like theists complaining about the way atheists like, well, you're just rebelling at this certain type of God, like your definition of God is too narrow. Like I'm at the point like I don't have a definition of God. Like I'm going to let all you people who believe there is a God like keep arguing amongst yourselves. Like, okay, let me know when you figured out what God is, and then I'll tell you that I reject that notion.
Any version of God is too narrow. Like, if this is like in the context of like, if God is real, if there is one God and only one God, then that God does have to be omni everything. And so for anybody to say like, it's not that God, it's this God, well, it's not your God either, because because you've differentiated now. And all right, so I'm gonna try to like blend different things together. I've got like several thoughts.
Do it.
All right, so I agree. Like with this guy, without meaning, people do perish. Uh, when somebody loses meaning in their life, it's bad. Um, People basically can't survive after that. So it's true. People need meaning, and I want everyone to live the meaning they have. Uh, like what truly has meaning for you. Somebody should live that, and then follow meaning. Like if it leaves a certain faith that you're in, like chase the meaning. Because if you like sacrifice meaning in your life for your faith, it's gonna get dark. And um, I think we're all right. Let's take two extremes, two like polar opposites, quote unquote polar opposites. So you take atheists and monotheists, we'll say Christians, or atheist and Christian. And they describe the same thing. Both of those descriptions or understandings are subjective. Neither, whatever they're describing, is objective truth, but it's two subjective points of view. So while one side might be more of an accurate description than another, based on what's testable, and that would be atheism. Uh, um, it doesn't mean somebody's vocabulary for meaning in their life is false. It just means that it's not tied down to that vocabulary. And whatever that third thing is that we're both describing, like that's what we should be focused on. Like
tornado warning.
What?
There's a tornado warning now.
No, it's a flood warning.
Tornado warning.
Hold on, everyone.
Having weather issues.
Flash flood warning, tornado watch is all I've got right now.
My parents said they just saw as a tornado warning.
That might be for their area.
Except for Hamilton County.
Okay, we might be cutting this off in a minute.
Oh yeah.
Did you get a warning for tornadoes?
I did not. Hold on. Checking now.
Please hold.
Yeah. I just tried to take the trash out, and there was like lots of lightning, like greenish, maybe. I don't know.
Greenish lightning?
I don't know. I could be making that up.
Well, no, I mean the sky was green, which is tornado color. I wish they would tell people that if the clouds look green, then shit's about to go down.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I don't see anything from my area, but I guess if anyone's in Matt's area, maybe head to your basements.
It looks like northern Hamilton County. Can you find out? Can you look at another source? Okay.
So we've become the severe weather alert station here for you. Wish I had like a radar to point to or something. Yeah.
So yeah, this is one thing that occurred to me while I was like sitting and thinking about stuff is that like nobody has it exactly right. Some people have it more right than others based on like what we can measure and like prove or prove enough. But like that's a very unifying kind of thought that like none of us knows exactly what's happening. So like let's get the best picture we can. And we can't even see everything that there is to see. We can only see visible light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's things happening where clearly there's like physics we don't understand, like the UAP UFO stuff. Like there are legit things happening, that we don't have a framework for, and it breaks what we know about physics. And like this reality may be just a projection of actual reality.
Yeah.
So there's a lot.
Yeah.
Dude, Christians are still fighting about gay people, and now there's trans people, and like I swear, there's soon there's going to be talk of aliens, and the Christians are going to go, oh, but gay people.
Like we still haven't got past that yet. Yeah. Yeah, because that seems to be where the people who still want to hold on to their belief in God, like they keep retreating to, well, here's all this unexplainable stuff, so that's got to be like where God is. Like
if that helps somebody avoid existential crisis to like fill in that gap with God, I get it. But then, like when you find out what's actually fitting there, just replace it.
Yeah, because the thing that bugs me is, okay, so obviously, I think anyone who is like paying attention to reality and like understanding like the nature of humanity and specifically our limitations, like you have to admit there are things about reality that are just beyond our comprehension and beyond our understanding. But to me, it's like some people have just turned that into some sort of barrier between natural and supernatural. It's like, no, it's just the limit of our understanding. It's not like anything beyond our understanding just like magically becomes no longer natural. Like you think about like to ants, like we are beyond the comprehension of ants, but like that doesn't mean that we're supernatural. So when people try to use that as an excuse, well, you can't say there's no God or like you don't believe in one because like there's so many things you just don't understand. It's like, okay, yes, but just because there's things I don't understand, that doesn't mean that it's God. Because again, I go back to where did we even find our originally like come up with our concepts of gods to begin with? It came from our flawed view of reality.
Hey, what part of town are you in?
I'm in West Price Hill, Covedale.
How close to Cheviot are you?
Not super close, but
All right, because there's a tornado warning for Cheviot.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I haven't heard anything around here. No sirens
It's
or
for
nothing.
northwestern Hamilton County.
Okay, yeah, that's a little farther away from me.
Yeah,
but yeah. So thanks for the update. Again, stay safe out there, everybody. But yeah, just the idea of saying, well, see, we have all these areas we don't understand things, so that's where we're going to plug in our God thing. But just the fact that the whole concept of there being gods to begin with came from a flawed understanding that we had of reality. So I'm like, just admit there's things we don't understand and stop trying to tell me that you know what it is. That's my thing.
God filling in the gaps it is functional. It can be functional, but then like when something that explains it better comes along, then I think you have to replace it.
Yeah,
and I think that's what like revisions in theology used to be all about. But then we hit a point where like people saw where the revisions were going, and they decided that like any future revisions of consequence were bad and wrong. And
yeah,
but I think that's where we need to go as a species is the next phase, like whatever. Because I said this when we were talking after the last episode, like post-Christian cultures are different than post-Muslim cultures, or like whatever Christian humanism, or like the, you know what I mean, like cultural Christian secular is different than cultural Muslim secular, and I think that's the next step. These are Iron Age things that, like in the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, people realized like we've outgrown this, and then like it went from like theology used to be about like what am I missing, And then it became, how do I protect? How do I protect what I already believe? And
Mm-hmm.
like preservation instead of like real search of truth.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And that's when it becomes dangerous, and then people are like, how do I maintain?
Right.
How do I prove? Instead of
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm getting something wrong. What am I missing?
Yeah. Like, and this is something we've said a lot on here is like stories are helpful because like stories help us kind of grapple with things that we don't like have the like reality language for yet. So we come up with like stories and metaphors. But
And
as
many
long as we
experiences can relate to the same story too.
right, but they're at their best when we realize that they are stories and metaphors, and that we understand that we are not necessarily anyway accurately describing reality. So these aren't things that we need to hold on to this particular picture. Is like we'll come up with these stories and pictures, and then somewhere along the way, someone just decides, well, this story is the real
Yeah,
thing, so we have to hold on to this story, and yeah,
and,
that's where things get dangerous.
and it's like somebody listens to a song or reads a poem or something, and they're like, "But is it true?" Like, it's a nonsense question. Like,
Hmm.
it's that person's thing they wrote, so it's true. Factual? It's not, unless it's nonfiction. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
That question doesn't make any sense.
yeah, 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 yeah.
This is stupid. Let's just be safe. I don't understand.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Mr. Stone.
What? Okay, yeah, get everybody.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
Silverton is apparently in the lower right corner of the warning box, so
ooh, all right. Well, it's probably a good time as any to wrap up. So,
yeah. I
you want,
this is the first time my weather app has failed with these warnings.
yeah.
Wait, hold on now. Oh wait, they did just update it.
Ooh,
Fuckers.
all
Good
right.
job, guys. Way to be on top of things. It still says tornado watch.
All right. Well, do you have enough time to Benedict's, or should we just
Yeah, we're in tornado
roll out?
warning. Um yeah, everybody, tell your friends. If they're not good enough friends to like you after us two assholes, then I don't know. Maybe reevaluate.
Yeah, I mean, we'll still be your friends. All
For
right.
real.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Again, everyone in the Cincinnati area, or maybe any other area that's having severe weather, stay safe.
May your
Dig
things and
your
stuff be
basements if you
forever
need.
with your people. I'm gonna bunker with my people.
Yes, indeed. Enjoy. All right. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Bye bye.